What is your weird classmate story? He ate his vocabulary book at a rate of 1 or 2 pages a day throughout the school year. The teacher sent him to the office so many times. But next class he was back at it again. He was so determined. I wish I'd asked why. We had a guy at my high school who was a little socially inept. He would walk through the hallway with a sharpened pencil extended in front of him like a spear and say, "Make way. Make way. Mere mortals." Whenever he would walk to class. He also got in trouble for looking up PRN on the library computer. Of course. Actual PRN sites were blocked. So he researched pictures of Roman and Greek statues of nude women. Improvise. Adapt. The weird kid in my graduating class always walked around with a sketchbook in his hand. He would draw graphic, yet very realistic, looking sketches of dicks and hentai during class. And then somehow made them blend together into beautiful landscapes or works of art. It was like playing Where's Waldo every time he showed you his sketches. Except with dicks. Other than that, he was quite a funny dude to be around and everyone in our grade liked him. Last I heard he got accepted into a well-known art school in the States. And is apparently flourishing there as an artist. I hope he's still walking the halls with his dick book in hand and enjoying his little artistic life out there. Edit. Can I just say y'all are cracking me up at work with your comments? I may not reply everyone, but I'm definitely reading every comment. A guy named Aaron. Big. Stocky. Wild unbrushed hair to his shoulders and a face full of freckles. Always brought his pet rat to school. Tried to crack open a coconut on his desk in the middle of SNET. When it came to choosing year 12 prefects, he decided to give it a go. Part of applying is giving a speech in the performing arts auditorium to everyone so they'll vote for you. This one kid was caught with a machete in his backpack. This was around the time when people would dress as clowns and creep people out. So the kid's excuse was that the machete would be used to fight the clowns off. He was expelled. He was the son of one of our librarians. He was a grade above me and would come up to you and do weird shit like say, "I'm going to punch you." Then he would kick you and run away. He ended up murdering someone a couple years ago. She thought she was a cat. She crawled around on the floor, meowed, and purred. Teacher allowed this. And I didn't really care because she was still normal besides the cat thing. It got really weird when my friend suddenly screamed ow. FCK. Followed by the girl going mew from under the table. She bit his leg. A fake. She has no problems. Just likes being a cat. What is it with people pretending to be animals? This kid named Alec used to walk around hissing at people randomly and throwing things down the hall. In freshman year, they found a hit list in his locker. I somehow ended up on it even though I had never said a single word to him before. Smartest kid in the entire school, never talked. 4 years. About 6 classes together. Not one word. I tried my damnedest. Best I could get was writing or typing on screen in computer classes. People made fun of him, but I could tell he was a super nice kid, so I took up for him when I could. Travis. If you see this, hit me up. We had a guy like that too named Mike. Never talked. People tried to say hi to him and he'd just smile and look away. In 4 years of having classes with him, the teachers never made him answer a question in class or put him on the spot for anything. Our final year of high school he came back a different person. He got in with a group of guys with similar interests and then you couldn't shut him up. Was like night and day. This kid brought a taser into my middle school. When some kids wanted proof that it was real, he tased a banana. There was a super weird kid in my class who one day seemed to just disappear. Well, apparently he got arrested for cutting a chicken's head off and using the throat and body like a fleshlight. No one was surprised. License and registration. This is going to sound terrible, but this was a small town. Class of 50 kids. Didn't realize until I was in college that the weird classmate just had fetal alcohol syndrome. A girl I went to elementary school with used to think she was a dog. She would act like a dog. Panting. Barking. Licking her arms. Etc. We were all kids and it wasn't frequent enough for it to be weird, but one day she comes up to me as we're putting away our backpacks on the hooks and sticks her tongue out to reveal a glob of her own hair on her tongue. She then goes shhhhh and walks away. I will never forget this. We actually became closer acquaintances in high school later on, but I was too embarrassed to ever bring it up. Mostly for her. Edit. Till 90% of kids think they are a dog, cat, or T-Rex at some point. Edit 2. This guys at my school would literally do anything you dared him to do. Slap a kid with a slice of pizza? Done. Take a dump in the urinal? No problem. Take his shirt off in the middle of the cafeteria. Pour milk on himself while screaming? Easy. I talked to him a couple times in classes that I had with him and he actually seemed fairly normal. He doesn't have any social media, so I DK how he is doing currently. When I was in 6th grade, one of the special education kids whipped his dick out in gym class and started jerking off. Like really jerking off. Kids were losing their shit. He actually managed to finish before the coaches could get to him. I hired him as a temp worker a couple years after high school when I was overseeing a remodel of the retail store I was managing at the time. My boss was pissed I hired a retardee, her words. I stuck to my guns and let him sort stuff for a couple weeks. He was a badass. Like faster than I was. He never once whipped his dick out. The last line is hilarious without context. You're firing Travis? How? He's never even whipped his dick out. There was a boy in my sophomore bio class who could lactate. And by that I mean he could make some type of fluid come out of his nipples and would shoot it at people. Arsh to superpowers. Dear God. I have a great story. I moved to a new state my sophomore year of high school. I obviously didn't know anyone, so I had no idea what kids were considered weird. In my first couple of weeks, the kid that sat behind me asked if I could get him a tissue. The box of tissues was on a window ledge right beside me. So I oblige and hand him one. Then I hear super loud nom 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 nom. And this guy straight up devours this tissue. He just looked at me and smiled. I looked around the room and everyone was staring at him. This guy was playing games on his laptop instead of paying attention while the teacher was talking. He minimized the window and left to go to the toilet or something, can't remember. His backgrounds were anime and changed every 10 seconds. One of them was straight up hentai. The juicy stuff. Liquid everywhere. Every student noticed, and just before the teacher looked over at his screen it changed to something completely innocent. He was my school's Kevin. I had just returned to public school after homeschooling for a few years, moved a lot during that time. First day in school and this skinny grade 10 boy walks up to me and puts his finger on my arm. Looking intently at me. I brushed his hand away. And he did it again. Followed up by saying, "I'm planting eggs in you." Nope. 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 Kid I sat next to in math 11 spent the entirety of every single class with his left hand down the front of his pants. Just blatantly holding his dick. In a room with 30 other people in it just trying to learn F-king algebra. Later that year he killed himself. Edit. I can't believe my highest upvoted comment ever has to do with public masturbation and suicide. There you have it. Kids. Hand on your dick. Makes ya kill yourself. When I was a junior in high school there was this turd freshman. Name's Austin. He thought he was a rebel. Austin had bad acne. He would pop his pimples and eat it to gross everyone out. He tried his best to make everyone hate him. Then he would cry after school to the teachers that no one liked him. Edit. I hate that I still remember this, but there was this one like weird nerdy kid in my 8th grade English class who, whenever he applied chapstick, take 2 trips around the lips and then like stick it in his mouth a little and wiggle it around. This was like once an hour too and it just really creeped me out. Jeremy. Loved chickens. He would go on about the chickens on his farm. Depleted an entire tube of topical ointment every day. Would maliciously shank people he didn't like with mechanical pencils. Would inject graphite in himself with said mechanical pencils. Held his books like he was carrying logs. With the smallest books on top. He could sprint down the halls with these stacked books without dropping any. And did so after he tripped an obese kid. Had an unsettlingly strong resemblance to the medic from Team Fortress 2. We had a guy at my school. Let's call him Jay. Jay was a 6'5" and 280 pounds of muscle at 18 years old. Starting linebacker averaging like 4 sacks and like 20 tackles a game. A little one-man defense. Had multiple D1 and D2 offers. One time his helmet was knocked off his head and he went and speared the runner anyways. Walked back to the sidelines covered in blood from a cut on his head with the most terrifying smile I've ever seen. He was the most brutal athlete I've ever met. Fear was literally just not in his vocabulary. Jay turned down every school offer. We even had a NFL recruiter scout whatever visit him. My school had NFL ties from funding. All he wanted to do was go to the Marines and be a machine gunner and kill people. He enlisted immediately upon graduating. Disappeared for a year. And then returned home eventually committing suicide. Dude in my math class would jack off to hentai on Tumblr, over his pants. Then again I could be the weird classmate for being the who would willingly observe LMAO. Anime on the streets. So far I'm 80% sure no one is describing me yet. That's a relief. Kid kept masturbating in the back of his class. Everyone wanted him to stop. But nobody wanted to speak to him. This kid in the class before us wore a black trench coat to school every day. No exaggeration. Every day. Mind you, I live in Texas. So it gets hot. And when it gets hot, trench coat boy gets stinky. I actually don't know if we knew his name. I just know the other boys in our class referred to him as Stinky. They cleaned the table he sat at with Germex every day before class started. In high school here was this kid with diabetes that would eat gross stuff at lunch like cookies and barbecue sauce and gummy worms and ranch etc just to gross people out. Then one day in a class I had with him he scooped up all the fruit flies from the windowsill and just ate them. Completely unprovoked. Then the very next day at lunch he took I think 3 bites out of a soda can. Swallowed each bite. And everything was fine. Guess it didn't cut his insides on the way out and he was still coming to school and eating gross stuff and saying weird things. As I typed this I realized what a champ he is. A kid from my tuber section brought napalm to school because his friend made a bet with him. Later that same friend was paid $8 to report the kid and he ended up getting sent to alternate school. Edit for clarification. Okay. We're gonna call him Andy. In middle school when we would read our textbooks, Andy would rip his hair out, smell it, and either eat it or sprinkle it in the textbook. Andy also had wretched BO. In between classes, he would run down the hallway, jumping in between people, and when you saw him coming, you would instinctively hold her breath. One time, in high school the entire school smelled like raw asshole. The entire morning everybody was talking about the smell. Finally, teachers and the principal figure out it was Andy. No, it wasn't his normal BO. But he had shit his pants and was sitting in it all morning. D. Sounds like his parents should have been reported to CPS. Some people are mentally ill but a lot of kids act out by doing similar things when there's abuse and or neglect at home. When I was 12 I had this friend and as I got older I found him to be more annoying and childish to the point where I really hated him. Then later I found out that he has a mental disorder that caused him to stop mentally aging at 11 or 12. I grew up in a small village in upstate NY. In high school, 2 weird kids ordered ninja equipment from a magazine. They dressed in the outfits, masks and all, and began walking around town in broad daylight with swords on their backs. They were hanging out near the local bar when someone reported them to the town cop. The cop showed up and confiscated their weapons but told them, You guys can keep your pajamas. There was this girl in middle school my friends and I, as the resident outcasts, tried to be friends with because she obviously was too. But she proved too weird even for us. Her favorite hobby was to draw Yoshi, as in the Mario character, PRN. Like in the middle of class she'd be drawing detailed pictures of Yoshi sefking. For a project where we had to make a product commercial, she came to school in a pink bunny suit and beat the shit out of a box of Trix cereal. And during our poetry unit she wrote a poem basically about stalking a guy she liked. I'm watching you in the dark. I'm watching you in the bushes. I'm watching you from a distance. Always. Always watching. As someone who was the weird kid, I have a fear that I'm somewhere in here. This kid that was grade ahead of me got caught jerking off in science class when they watched the Miracle of Life video. I occasionally run into him. He denied it for years until recently, which now his excuse was the teacher was hot. I was in community college at the time, taking a beginner's Spanish class. It was me, an 18-year-old man, and 6 women in the class, so it was pretty close-knit. I sat next to a woman named Stephanie who was probably around 55-60. She told me about how her ex-husband was involved in the Russian mafia and that before she met him he had a child that was killed by the mafia when it was 3. She told me many other strange stories about her life throughout the semester. Towards the end of the semester, I was hustling out of the building like I always did. I heard a voice yelling my name behind me, and to my surprise it was Stephanie. She asked me if I was busy after class and if I wanted to go out and get drinks with her. It was 10 AM. Fairly tame but still weird. Had a kid inquire with me back in the 2000s who would use the teacher's computer every day before and after class to check how his eBay auctions were going. Did the whole buy things that were on eBay slightly undervalued and auction them right back again for a slightly higher price thing. Flipping. Kid ate puss from pimples and that sort of thing. Forgot to turn in his homework by the 5-minute mark in class, teacher wouldn't take it. Kid proceeded to then smash the table and scream, why does life hate me? Kid ate puss. Kid ate pus. 1s. The other is decidedly less uncool. In private Christian high school, my freshman year, this kid who was kind of a loner weird had a rumor spread about him that he cut holes in the inside of his hoodie pockets, like the middle pockets at the stomach, in order to touch himself while clothed. I didn't believe it until I saw him clearly jerking off in English class. The teacher was decent looking for private Christian school, I guess. I still feel sick about having seen it. Sat by a kid in math that dressed in Dragon Ball Z merch and drew the characters all class. Smelled extremely strongly of pickles too. After, I failed math because of the nauseating scent of dill pickles. Some kid brought a katana to school and got arrested. Update IDK the kid's name, but I would assume it was a white kid who specializes in Japanese culture. While you were having premarital sex, I was studying the blade. My super weird silent chemistry partner during sophomore year shot and killed another student at school during my junior year. So, that was nuts. I was the weird classmate. In middle school I found a sparrow in the ground. Clearly sick. Jerking around. I didn't know what to do, but I wanted to help it so much that I picked it up. It continued convulsing and died. I felt so bad for it that I wanted to bury it. But the others got wind that I had a dead bird in my pocket and told the teachers, who pulled me out of class and scolded me, making me throw it away. I think they assumed I'd killed it. Still, sometimes the weird classmate had a reason for their actions. I know I'm still weird for doing this, but I was 12 and I felt really bad that I didn't know how to save it. I just wanted it to be buried. I guess I thought it would atone for the fact that I couldn't save it. I'm not sure if he had a disorder or what, but he definitely wasn't all up there. He had his 2 or so friends and seemed okay most days. Once in a while he'd screech or do something random to try to get attention. One time he came in begging for one of the dudes to kick him in the nuts. I stopped talking to him after he snorted wasabi. There was other shenanigans I'm sure I've forgotten. His big event though. He comes in class with a long jacket in Florida f***ing heat. I didn't see, but supposedly just before class he flashed some girl in our class and runs out. Either way, never saw him again. This guy in my math class made a bet with this chick that if he masturbates and finishes during the class period, she would do his HW for a month. He didn't finish, but he did give me a wave when I looked at him disgustingly. He was super quiet all the time, but he definitely wasn't a thinker. When he blinked, his eyes would do it at different times. His voice was an odd tone of raspy and squeaky. I think he skated on a very delicate line between special ed and regular classes. Our teacher in grade 8 asked the class what color pee was when you get dehydrated. He said green. The whole class was dumbfounded. I don't know where he is now, but I hope he's well. This super awkward dude in middle school went on an ass slapping spree. Managed to hit and run on 4 girls before he was caught. He got suspended for the rest of the year. I've told this one before, but here goes. Back in high school, this popular blonde girl, who looked like a more youthful Tara Reid, had 2 churlish guys vying for her affections. She convinced these 2 guys to fight shirtless on the school field for her entertainment. In front of the blonde girl and a small crowd. These 2 knuckleheads took their shirts off and had a surprisingly brutal fist fight. One of them ended up so badly beaten he went to hospital with a fractured eye socket, swollen lip and bloodied nose. Both guys were suspended for a month. The blonde skipped away into the sunset and, as far as I'm aware, never gave either of them so much as a kiss on the cheek for their troubles. My freshman year of high school, I took a class called Foods during first period. In my group was this one dumb skater kid who somehow managed to show up stoned at 7:30 am. He got moved from my group to another after he sleepily waved a knife in my general direction, mumbling something about shanking. Oh. And this same group contained a girl who once misread the recipe for wontons and added a 1/4 cup of ginger instead of a 1/4 teaspoon. Quite the memorable experience. Had a kid who pretended band-aids were stickers and would cover herself in them. We had a really smart kid. Scrawny and kind of quiet. He could not stand to be wrong. For the longest time, if he got anything less than an A, he would break down crying. I feel confident enough to say it wasn't pressure from his parents, because based on conversations with his brother, they were pretty chill. This kid also ate erasers. He relaxed some around junior and senior year. Though, thinking about it now, I wonder if he might be on the autistic spectrum, but was undiagnosed. His brother on the other hand was just a super chill, well-rounded guy. Friends with everyone. In band. On the football team. Model UN. There was a girl who would pick out her eyebrow hair and eat it with ketchup during class. There was this one kid who was constantly stoned, and one day he decided to come into class riding a unicycle. Then about 10 minutes into class he jumped out of the window that was about 10 feet off ground because he was thirsty. Meet Sam. In 2nd grade. He went to the bathroom. Came back with no shirt on. Said it flew off. Edit. Forgot to mention that we found the shirt on the monkey bars. He definitely pissed on it. There's a kid who went to my old school who was mainly known for not talking very much but hissing or making random animal sounds at people in the hallway. The one specific memory I had of him was last year in art. He was assigned to sit at the same table I was at. The second day. You could say I was the weird kid. I'm not joking, I was weird as FCK. Makes me cringe to this day, to be honest. Anyway, I found a song from The Simpsons Dungeons and Dragons episode about Dungeons and Dragons. I sung it once and everybody, and I mean everybody, somehow heard about my rap and asked me to sing it each and every day, and I did as they asked to please them. Obviously it got tired, but people kept asking to sing it. I couldn't say no because they'd beg me to sing it, so I was forced to do it. You may have been weird then, but you can't cut it in this thread.